They set up the poor mechanic on a blind date as a prank, but the CEO's daughter said, "I like him." Eli Turner was 30 years old and lived a quiet life on the outskirts of town. A skilled mechanic with strong hands and a gentle nature, he spent his days fixing cars and his evenings caring for his aging mother. He did not go out much. He did not dress up. He stayed off dating apps and rarely talked about romance. What he did, day in and day out, was offer help to anyone who needed it, expecting nothing in return. At the garage, a group of younger men from a nearby office often stopped by during their lunch breaks. They liked Eli, in a distant sort of way, but found his simplicity amusing. His outdated clothes, his cluelessness around women, his habit of bringing the same sandwich every day. He probably thinks a date means changing oil together. One of them joked once, making the others laugh. Then one day, they had an idea. "Let's set him up on a blind date," one said, grinning. "Somewhere fancy. See what happens when a woman way out of his league just walks." They crafted a fake program, something like Workers' Appreciation Blind Date. They told Eli he'd been nominated by a secret admirer. The prize? Dinner at one of the fanciest restaurants in town and the chance to meet someone special. Eli was confused but touched. He never thought of himself as date-worthy. But that night, when he told his mother, she smiled gently and squeezed his hand. "Maybe it's time," she said. "You never know. There could be someone out there who sees you the way I do." And so Eli agreed. On Saturday, he spent the morning getting ready. He picked out the best clothes he owned, a white button-up shirt, freshly ironed despite a faint oil stain on the sleeve, left there from fixing a kid's bike chain last fall. His khakis were snug, his sneakers old but clean. He looked in the mirror and gave himself a small nod. That evening, he arrived at Maison de Lumière, a place of glowing chandeliers and marble floors. Inside, everything sparkled. People moved, like they belonged there. Eli, holding his breath, stepped in and gave his name. The host led him to a small table by the window. He sat quietly, glancing at the menu but too nervous to read. 15 minutes passed. Then, she arrived. Tall, beautiful, dressed in designer heels and confidence. She walked up, scanned him from head to toe. Her eyes paused at the oil stain. She didn't sit. "I don't think you're the kind of man I was expecting," she said, voice cool. Then she turned and walked away. Eli stared at the empty chair. His shoulders sank. His eyes dropped. He stayed that way for 5 seconds, just 5, but it felt like the world had stopped. Then he exhaled, sat up, and looked out the window. A waiter approached. "Sir, would you still like to order?" Eli nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'll take the pepperoni pizza, just for me tonight." The waiter walked away. Eli sat back, trying to let it roll off. Maybe this was just his place in life. Quiet, small, invisible, but still he smiled faintly. "Guess it's dinner for one," he whispered to himself. And outside, the city kept moving. He didn't know it yet, but something extraordinary was about to walk through those same doors. Eli was halfway through his pizza, the warmth of melted cheese doing little to ease the sting in his chest. He had been trying to enjoy it, telling himself it was just another meal, just another night. The voices of diners faded into a distant hum as he stared out the window, watching the evening slip by. Then came a small, clear voice behind him. "Mommy, I like him. Can we sit with him?" Eli turned slowly, unsure if he had heard right. A few feet away stood a woman holding the hand of a small child. The little girl looked no older than 3, with soft brown curls and curious eyes. She was pointing directly at him. The woman beside her was striking in a quiet, graceful way. Her blonde hair curled softly past her shoulders. She wore a simple cream-colored dress, but what caught Eli most was her expression, elegance edged with something heavy. Sadness, maybe, or weariness deeper than tiredness. Their eyes met, a flicker of surprise, then mild embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. She tends to say exactly what she's thinking. I hope she didn't bother you." Eli straightened. He looked at the girl, now smiling at him, swaying slightly in her mother's grip. "No, not at all," he said, a smile forming. "It's nice." There was a pause. The woman looked at her daughter, then at the empty seat across from Eli. "If you don't mind," she said, "could we join you? Just for a bit?" Eli hesitated, not because he didn't want company, but because he couldn't quite believe it. Someone like her, sitting with someone like him? Still, he nodded. "Sure. Please." She smiled, a soft, flickering smile, then helped her daughter into the booth and sat across from Eli. The little girl leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I like your shirt," she said. Eli glanced at his old white button-up, oil-stained on one sleeve, something he'd tried to hide earlier. "Thanks," he replied, chuckling. "It's been through a lot. I'm Mila," the girl added proudly. "This is Mila," the woman echoed, smoothing her daughter's hair. "I'm Eli," he said, reaching a hand across the table. She took it. "Savannah." For a few moments, they simply sat, two adults and a child who looked perfectly at ease. Eli didn't know what to say. Savannah didn't seem like someone from his world, and yet, here she was. Mila reached for a breadstick from the basket the waiter had just set down. "Do you like pizza?" she asked Eli, mouth half full. "I do," he said. "It's my favorite." "Me too," she exclaimed, then turned to her mom. "Mommy, we should eat pizza with him every day." Savannah laughed softly, covering her mouth. It was the first time Eli saw her face truly light up. The waiter returned, clearly curious but composed. "Would you like anything else?" Savannah looked at Eli. "May I?" "Of course." She ordered a small margarita pizza and lemonade for Mila. Eli noticed how natural she seemed, how easily she fit into this odd little moment, as if it wasn't strange at all. As they waited, Savannah glanced around the room. "Funny," she said, more to herself than anyone. "We weren't even supposed to come here tonight." Eli tilted his head. "No?" She shook her head gently. "No. But sometimes, the best places are the ones you don't plan on." He smiled. "I've found that to be true." Outside, the sky was darkening, casting slow-moving shadows across the glass. Inside, something unexpected was quietly beginning. To Eli's surprise, talking with Savannah came easier than he expected. She didn't seem interested in bragging or dominating the conversation. In fact, she seemed far more comfortable listening than talking. He told her a bit about the garage where he worked, how he'd been fixing cars since he was a teenager, how he learned everything from his uncle and built his own tool bench from scrap metal. He mentioned his mother, too, how she had arthritis now, but still insisted on baking every Sunday for the neighbors. "Sounds like you've got a good heart," Savannah said. Eli shrugged modestly. "She raised me to treat people right. That's about the only rule I've stuck with." Savannah smiled, but there was something in her eyes, something Eli couldn't quite read, like she was present but also far away. When he gently asked about her work or what brought her to town, she steered the conversation back to her daughter. "Mila keeps me busy," she said with a light laugh. "She's 3 but already thinks she's running the world. She's bright," Eli said, watching the little girl as she carefully arranged packets of sugar into rows on the table. "Confident, too." Savannah nodded, her smile softening. "She's everything to me." The way she said it, quiet, protective, almost like a prayer, made Eli pause. She spoke about Mila with pride, but behind her voice was something else, something heavier. Loss? Exhaustion? It wasn't in her words. It was in the way she looked down for a second too long, the way her hand rested gently over her daughter's, as if grounding herself. Eli didn't push. He respected silences. He knew that some wounds didn't want to be spoken aloud. Mila, meanwhile, had taken a liking to Eli. She giggled when he made faces with the leftover crust of his pizza and asked endless questions about the grease under his fingernails. "Do you fix rocket ships too?" she asked between bites. "Only the small ones," he replied with a wink. Savannah laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh, it was genuine, warm. Eli found himself smiling more than he had in weeks. But then, something changed. A sharp gasp came from a nearby table. A boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, was choking. His mother stood up, panicked, calling out his name. The father fumbled helplessly, unsure what to do. Utensils clattered. The room froze. Eli was already on his feet. He moved quickly but calmly, stepping around Savannah and Mila. As he reached the boy, he gently placed a hand on the father's shoulder and nodded. "It's okay. I've got him." The boy was turning red, unable to breathe. Eli knelt behind him, wrapped his arms around the child's torso, and performed the Heimlich maneuver. 1, 2, 3 sharp compressions, and then the boy coughed, hard. A piece of food flew from his mouth and hit the table. The child gasped in a breath. A ripple of relief spread through the room. The mother pulled her son into her arms, crying and thanking Eli again and again. Applause broke out from several tables. Eli stood, brushing off his hands awkwardly, clearly not used to being the center of attention. He offered a brief nod, then returned to his table like nothing had happened. Savannah was staring at him, not with surprise, but with something deeper. "You just knew what to do," she said softly. "I learned it a while back," Eli replied, sitting down. "Did some volunteer training at the community center. Figured it might come in handy one day." Savannah blinked. "Most people would panic. You didn't even flinch." He shrugged again. "I guess I just wanted to help." She looked at him differently now, with admiration, with gratitude, and perhaps with the first stirrings of something more. Mila, unaware of the gravity of the moment, clapped her hands. "Yay, rocket ship fixer saves the day," Eli chuckled. Savannah leaned forward, her eyes steady on his. "I don't know many people like you," she said. Eli didn't know what to say to that. So, he just smiled. Sometimes, words weren't needed. Savannah Langford couldn't stop thinking about him. As she drove Mila home from the restaurant that night, the lights of the city blurred across the windshield. Mila hummed softly in the back seat, full from her pizza and already dozing off. But Savannah's mind was elsewhere, replaying every moment of the evening they had just shared. There was something different about Eli Turner. He was kind in a way that felt honest, simple but never small. And when he had saved that little boy with calm, sure hands, something inside Savannah shifted. That night, after kissing Mila goodnight and tucking her in, Savannah poured herself a cup of tea and settled by the wide window of their luxury apartment. The skyline shimmered beyond the glass. Her blonde curls, a little tousled now, glowed under the soft lamplight. She sat silently, fingers curled around her mug, letting the stillness pull at memories she hadn't touched in years. She was Harold Langford's only daughter, CEO of Langford Motors. Her childhood was scheduled and spotless, expectations high, mistakes unacceptable. When she married young, it wasn't just about love. It was escape. She hoped someone might see her, not the heiress, not the title, but the real girl beneath the polish. But her husband hadn't been that person. The marriage dissolved quickly. She was left with a child, a shattered reputation, and headlines like "Heiress turned single mom." They painted her as a spoiled woman who made bad choices. They didn't see the quiet heartbreak, the sleepless nights, the shame. Since then, she'd built walls, composed, controlled, untouchable, until Eli. Then fate decided to step in again, unexpected, uninvited. A few days later, Savannah was driving Mila to preschool when warning lights blinked red on the dash. The car stuttered and stopped in the middle of a busy street. Horns blared. Engines revved behind her. Her heart pounded. "Mila, stay buckled, okay?" she said, forcing calm into her voice. She was reaching for her phone when a beat-up pickup truck pulled in behind her, and Eli stepped out. He walked to her window, wiping his hands with a rag. "Need a hand?" he asked, smiling. Savannah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You again." He chuckled. "I'm starting to think your car likes me." Before she could answer, the back door flung open and Mila jumped out, sprinting toward him. "Grease superhero," she squealed, throwing her arms around his legs. Eli laughed and bent to hug her. "My favorite sidekick." Savannah climbed out of the car, shaking her head, eyes fixed on her daughter. "She never does that," she murmured. "Not even with family." Eli looked at her. Smile soft. "Kids know." He popped the hood, quickly diagnosing the issue. A loose sensor cable. Within minutes, he had it fixed. "All set," he said, wiping his hands. "Should be good to go." Savannah reached for her wallet. "Let me." Eli stopped her gently. "No, just glad I was nearby." At that, Mila dug into her backpack and pulled out her sticker sheet. She peeled off a shiny gold star and stuck it right over Eli's shirt pocket. "This is your hope star," she said. "You're a good person, and good people should always have hope." Eli froze, then crouched down slowly, eyes level with hers. "Thank you, Mila," he said softly. "That means a lot." Savannah blinked quickly, turning away under the guise of fixing her purse. Her eyes stung. It had been so long since anyone had treated her child, not like an accessory or an inconvenience, but like someone precious. Eli didn't perform kindness. He lived it. As he waved goodbye and drove off, Savannah stood on the sidewalk with Mila's small hand in hers. She watched his old truck disappear into the city traffic, and for the first time in what felt like years, she felt something quiet and terrifying rise in her chest. She felt safe. With him, rumors have a way of circling back, especially in a small, working-class neighborhood like the one around Eli's garage. After several run-ins between Eli and the elegant woman with the golden-haired child, whispers started up again. The same group of young men who had orchestrated the prank began to notice something they hadn't expected. Eli wasn't embarrassed. If anything, he looked connected to her. They saw her SUV pull up more than once, saw her get out, saw the little girl run to Eli like he was family. One afternoon, one of the guys muttered, loud enough for others to hear, "You know that blind date was a prank, right? The first girl. We told her to show up, take one look at him and leave." And he actually believed it. Eli heard. He didn't say a word. He stood with a wrench in hand, paused a few seconds in silence, then simply exhaled. No outrage, no bitterness, just a quiet sigh. Then he knelt beside the car he was working on and tightened the bolts. He had long grown used to being overlooked, underestimated, even mocked. But what still surprised him, what still caught him off guard, was kindness. Especially when it showed up without warning. That evening, just as he was closing up, the hum of a well-maintained SUV pulled into the lot. Savannah stepped out first, her blonde curls catching the late sun. Mila followed, hopping out of the back seat and sprinting to Eli. "Grease superhero," she cried, throwing her arms around his legs. "I missed you." Eli laughed and bent down. "City's been real quiet without my sidekick." Savannah approached, holding 2 lemonades and a small smoothie. "Mila insisted we stop by," she said, smiling. "She thinks it's important to check in on her superhero." "I'm glad you did," Eli said warmly. They all sat on the old bench outside the garage. Mila leaned against Eli's shoulder, sipping her smoothie, while Savannah handed him a lemonade. They talked about the heat, summer plans, and a classic car Eli was restoring. At one point, Mila pulled out her sticker sheet and gently pressed another glittering star onto Eli's tool chest. "A second star," she declared. "One for today's hope." Savannah watched him closely. The way he listened without interruption, how he looked at Mila like she was the most important person in the world. But she also noticed a shadow behind his smile, a quiet weight. She didn't ask, didn't press, she just stayed, and that meant more to Eli than she would ever know. As the sun began to dip lower, they rose to leave. Eli walked them to the SUV. Savannah unlocked the doors, and Eli crouched beside the rear tire. "This one's a little low," he noted. Before she could respond, he grabbed his air compressor and topped it off. You always do that? Savannah asked, half amused. Old habit, Eli said. Makes me feel better knowing you and Mila are safe out there. In the golden light of early evening, the scene almost looked like a painting. Eli wiping grease off his hands, Mila sitting on the edge of the SUV, feet swinging as she hummed, Savannah watching quietly with a hand shielding her eyes. Then Mila looked up at Eli and said, completely unprompted, "You're a good person. Mommy says good people should always get good things." Savannah blushed. "Mila," but the little girl wasn't finished. "I want to see you every day." Eli smiled, his voice soft. "You're going to spoil me, you know that?" And in that moment, the world felt still. No titles, no class, no stories. Just a man, a woman, and a child in a sunlit garage. Later, as Savannah drove home with Mila fast asleep in the back seat, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her lips curved into a quiet smile. "Maybe," she whispered. "This is what it feels like when something good starts." At the same time, Eli turned off the garage lights. He looked at the star Mila had given him, glittering faintly on his toolbox. He ran his finger over it, then smiled to himself. "Good things," he murmured. "Maybe they're not so far after all." The rumors had spread further than anyone expected. Word of Savannah Langford being seen more than once at a modest auto garage, talking, smiling, even sitting close to a man in grease-stained clothes, reached the upper floors of Langford Motors and, inevitably, the office of its CEO, Harold Langford. He was not a man who missed details, especially when they involved his daughter. And once the whispers suggested scandal, he acted quickly. It took him a single phone call to learn who Eli Turner was. A name, a workplace, a simple life, enough for him to form a judgment. So one afternoon, while Eli was under an aging sedan, wrench in hand and the radio humming, a sleek black luxury car rolled into the garage lot. He didn't notice it until a pair of polished shoes appeared beside the wheel he was tightening. Sliding out from under the car, Eli wiped his hands and stood, then froze. The older man before him was tall, composed, dressed in a tailored navy suit worth more than the sedan Eli was repairing. His silver hair was neatly combed back, his eyes sharp and scrutinizing. "Eli Turner," the man said, as though confirming it. "Yes, sir," Eli replied cautiously. "I'm Harold Langford," he said. "Savannah's father." A quiet alarm flickered inside Eli, though he kept his expression steady. Mr. Langford surveyed the garage, the chipped paint, the scattered tools, the oil stains on the floor. "This is where you work?" he asked. He already knew. "It is," Eli answered simply. Langford crossed his arms. "I'll be direct. I don't like surprises. And I know men like you. You see someone like my daughter and think, here's my way up." Eli said nothing. "Savannah's been through enough," Langford continued. "She doesn't need someone playing hero or trying to win her with a sympathy story." Eli met his gaze. "I never tried to win her. We met by chance. Everything since then has just happened naturally. I haven't asked her for anything." Langford stepped closer. "Well, I'm asking you now. Walk away." Eli didn't flinch. "With respect, sir. Savannah chooses for herself. I'm not controlling anything." Langford's jaw tightened. He cast one more disdainful glance at the garage, then turned sharply and walked back to his car. The engine purred, and he drove off, leaving Eli standing alone in the settling dust. Later that evening, Savannah arrived at her father's penthouse, summoned under the pretense of a casual dinner. But it was anything but casual. He brought it up as soon as the food was served. "I visited him today," he said without looking at her. Savannah's hands stilled. "Eli? He's a mechanic, Savannah. He works in a shack that leaks oil. Is that the life you want?" She set her fork down. "It's not about what he does. You're my daughter," he said firmly. "You deserve someone with status, someone strong, not a man who fixes tires all day." Her voice trembled, not in fear, but in frustration. "I deserve someone who respects me, someone who sees me, Not Langford Motors or the CEO's daughter. Her father narrowed his eyes. And you think he doesn't see your name first? You're being naive. Savannah's voice sharpened. No, you're afraid. Afraid I might choose someone who makes me feel safe, and you won't be able to control it. Harold stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. I am protecting you. No, she replied, rising as well. You're protecting an image. The room fell into tense silence. Finally, she said, I'm not walking away from him. And you don't get to decide what kind of life is worthy of me. Without finishing her meal, she grabbed her purse and walked out, the door closing sharply behind her. Back at the garage, Eli worked quietly long after closing time, replaying the conversation he'd had with her father. He wasn't angry, just resigned. He had never expected to belong in her world. He had always known the divide between them was wide. But what he hadn't expected was that Savannah would fight fiercely to keep him in hers. It was a warm Saturday afternoon when Savannah and Mila visited the park near their apartment, a quiet space nestled between the chaos of the city and the calm of a nearby lake. The air was filled with children's laughter, the rustle of leaves, and the hum of summer. Savannah held Mila's hand as they strolled along the paved path. Birds chirped overhead. Mila skipped every few steps, pointing at dogs, flowers, and butterflies. For the first time in days, Savannah felt her chest loosen. Then, just ahead, she spotted a familiar figure crouched beside a woman with a crying toddler and a toppled stroller. The stroller's front wheel was bent inward, clearly broken. The woman looked overwhelmed, struggling to calm her child and manage the mess. Eli was already there. He had a wrench in one hand, his tool bag beside him on the grass. He spoke gently to the woman, offering a smile of reassurance as he realigned the wheel, adjusted the axle, and tightened a few bolts with calm, practiced ease. Savannah stopped in her tracks. Mila gasped, her whole face lighting up. Without hesitation, she let go of her mother's hand and bolted forward. "Grease, superhero," she called out, arms wide. Eli looked up, surprised, and then grinned as Mila threw herself against his legs. "Hey, Mila," he laughed, catching her easily. "What are you doing here, sidekick?" "I came to the park," she said proudly. "But now it's better because you're here." He chuckled, brushing a leaf from her hair. Savannah approached slowly, her heart tugging as she watched them. There was something so natural about it, Mila clinging to Eli like he belonged in her life. And then, out of nowhere, Mila blurted it out. "I like him," she declared loudly, looking up at her mother. "You like him too, Mommy." Savannah blinked, caught off guard. Her cheeks flushed pink. "Mila," she began. But Eli was already rubbing the back of his neck, smiling awkwardly. I guess that's out in the open now," he said with a chuckle. Savannah glanced at him and then looked down, her voice soft but sincere. "She's not wrong." Their eyes met. For a brief second, the world fell quiet. There was no status, no difference in class or history. Just them, and the soft afternoon sun filtering through the trees. But what they didn't see, at least, not yet, was the man standing across the park, watching everything unfold. Harold Langford stood beneath the shade of an old elm tree, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He had followed them, not to spy, but to understand. After their argument, something in Savannah's voice had stuck with him. So, today, he came not to confront, but to observe, and what he saw was not what he expected. He saw Mila run to Eli with complete trust. No fear, no hesitation. He saw Eli gently crouch to tie Mila's untied shoelace, brushing a speck of dirt from her knee like it was second nature. He saw Savannah, his daughter who had spent years hiding behind a wall of strength and solitude, smiling with a softness he hadn't seen since she was a teenager. And slowly, something within Harold Langford shifted. Not entirely, but enough. Because in that moment, he realized something. Eli Turner hadn't taken anything from Savannah. He had given her back something no money, title, or influence could offer: peace. Harold remained still as they walked off toward the playground, Savannah and Eli side by side, Mila skipping between them. He didn't call out. He didn't interrupt. He simply watched, and for the first time, he began to wonder if perhaps he had been wrong. A few days had passed since the afternoon in the park. Eli had returned to his quiet routine at the garage, though something inside him felt different, lighter, somehow. He had not expected anything more to come from the day Savannah and Mila found him again. But then, one morning, as he was adjusting a timing belt beneath the hood of an old pickup truck, a shadow stretched across the garage floor. Eli looked up and was surprised to see Harold Langford standing there. No suit this time, just a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up, and an expression that wasn't quite stern but still guarded. Eli wiped his hands, stood up straight. "Mr. Langford," he said, polite but cautious. The older man didn't speak at first. He just glanced around the garage again, the way he had the first time. But this time, there was something else in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Curiosity. He finally let out a slow breath. "I misjudged you," Harold said. Eli's brow furrowed slightly, unsure of how to respond. "I thought I was protecting my daughter," he continued. "But the truth is, I was just afraid she'd get hurt again, afraid she'd choose someone who couldn't carry the weight of her world." He paused, then added with quiet conviction, "But I watched you, with her, with Mila. You're not trying to take anything, you're just being who you are." Eli nodded slowly. "I care about them, a lot." "I can see that," Harold said, "which is why I want to offer you something." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded brochure. "Langford Motors is launching a new initiative, Community Car Care, free vehicle maintenance for low-income workers, nurses, teachers, janitors, the people who keep the world turning." He handed it to Eli. "We need someone who knows the work and knows how to talk to people with dignity. I think that's you." Eli stared at the flyer, stunned. "You want me involved in this?" he asked. "I want you leading it," Harold replied. Eli didn't have words, only a nod and a quiet, "Thank you." A week later, the launch event took place at a community center downtown. The room buzzed with journalists, local officials, families from every walk of life. A large banner read, "Community Car Care, powered by Langford Motors." Eli stood near the podium, adjusting the collar of his cleanest shirt, still a little wrinkled, but presentable. He wasn't used to cameras or speeches. He was more comfortable under a car than under a spotlight. But then he heard tiny footsteps behind him and a familiar, bubbly voice. "There he is." Mila came running up the stage steps, arms open. "That's my favorite person," she shouted to the crowd. Laughter rippled through the room. Savannah followed behind her, wearing a soft blue dress, her golden curls catching the light. She took Mila's hand, then reached for Eli's. She squeezed gently. "Thank you," she whispered, "for stepping into our lives when we didn't even know we needed someone." Eli smiled, his heart full. "I think I needed you more than you needed me."